Sometimes life turns upside down and we find ourselves asking, how do I keep going? If you ever felt that way, or if you feel that way now, take a deep breath. Because today I want to share a true story that carries a lesson of strength, calm, and courage. And the most incredible part? It's rooted in an ancient philosophy that feels more relevant today than ever. So stay with me until the end, because perhaps by the time this video is over, you'll never see your challenges in the same way again. There are moments when it feels like the entire universe conspires to teach us something profound and simple at once. It's not about fame, wealth, or anything visible to the majority. It's about something far more powerful. The strength that rises from within, from our hearts, from our ability to endure, to learn, and to grow. Today, I want to share a story that invites us to reflect on what true strength really means and how often the greatest victories are not seen by others, but deeply recognized within ourselves. Prepare yourself to see life through a different lens by the end of this journey. Our story begins in a small, distant village, where the warm air seemed to invite both reflection and silence. There lived Valentina, a young girl whose life was marked by challenges and sacrifices from the very start. Her mother, a tireless seamstress, and her father, a gardener at the local school, taught her early on the importance of every small effort, of every hard-earned step. For Valentina, life was never about waiting for easy rewards. It was about constant learning and perseverance. While other children played freely, Valentina was already familiar with the responsibilities of helping at home. Her days were not filled with carefree moments, but with tasks, assisting her mother in the small sewing workshop or attending the plants her father cared for in the garden. By the age of 7, she understood that things wouldn't simply happen. She would have to chase what she dreamed of. And more than any toy or moment of leisure, what Valentina wanted most was to change her own reality. At 12, when most of her friends were discovering technology and social media, Valentina made a different choice. She started working at the local market, helping set up and take down the stalls. The work was hard, and her small hands often became sore and calloused, yet she never let the hardship weigh her down. For her, every small effort was another step towards building something greater. And even in the face of exhaustion, Valentina carried a quiet smile, as if she knew that today's struggles, no matter how small they seemed, would one day carry a much deeper meaning. But what impressed most about Valentina was not her physical strength or tireless effort, but the generosity of her heart. While her classmates thought about fun or their own struggles, Valentina was already concerned with others. At just 14, she quietly started a project at school. She knew many of her peers didn't have enough to eat or proper school supplies to study. So she began to collect discreet donations, expecting no recognition in return. A simple box was enough, a place where those who had a little extra could give something. What began as a small gesture gradually grew into something powerful. Even though her actions went unnoticed by many, she knew she was building something far more lasting than any award or fame. True impact. Over time, Valentina came to understand a fundamental lesson that Stoicism teaches: the value of small victories. True greatness is not measured by applause, but by the silent moments when we do what is right without expecting a reward, she often reflected. When the opportunity arose to enter a cultural contest in her city, Valentina saw a chance to put this lesson into practice. The theme was, what does it mean to be strong? And with her simple notebook and worn-out pencil, she wrote about the truth she lived. Being strong is not about showing muscles or possessing riches, but about facing adversity with humility, persistence, and love for others. She never imagined that her simple, heartfelt essay would reach beyond the borders of her small town. As the contest advanced to the state level, Valentina's words touched many. People were moved by the sincerity and depth of her writing, and what stood out most was her ability to see strength in what usually goes unnoticed. Strength, she showed, lies in the small daily choices, the invisible act that slowly, quietly changed the world. Winning the contest didn't bring Valentina fame or wealth, but it opened doors for her to share her story with more people. And more importantly, it gave her certainty that true greatness is not found in visible achievements, but in the silent gestures and daily choices we make far away from the spotlight. As Valentina grew, so did her world, deepening in meaning and purpose. By the time she was 17, she no longer carried only her own stories of perseverance. She had also begun to collect the quiet fruits of the seeds she had planted in the hearts of dozens of children from her region. That simple school donation project, which started with an improvised box, grew almost without her noticing. It became a living network of solidarity, involving public schools, open-air markets, small neighborhood shops, and entire families who, moved by Valentina's example, decided to join this chain of kindness. What once were only notebooks and pencils donated now also included clothing, food, and above all, doses of hope that multiplied like silent echoes of real change. It was during this time that Valentina dared to dream even bigger. She wanted to study education, not simply become a teacher, as many assumed, but because she wished to deeply understand how education could be transformed at its roots. She wanted to be an agent of change to those who, like herself, knew that knowledge is the one wealth that can never be taken away. However, a huge obstacle stood in her way: money. Her family could not afford to pay for college. And once again, Valentina refused to give in to discouragement. During the day, she worked at a local bakery. She started as a simple helper, cleaning the floor, but soon stood out for the care and attention she put into every task. She learned to decorate cakes and arrange window displays so warm and beautiful that many customers came more for the welcoming atmosphere than for the products themselves. At night, she would sit in front of her books, preparing for exams, studying tirelessly for entrance tests, and applying for every scholarship opportunity she could find. Yet, as always, the journey was harsh. Many days began before sunrise and ended only when her body could no longer carry on. There were times when her hands hurt so much she could barely hold a pencil, nights when her eyes fought to stay open over the open pages. More than once, she seriously thought about giving up, but within her burned a flame that refused to be extinguished, a serene, silent, and unbreakable force that kept pushing her forward, even when the world around her seemed to say it would be easier to stop. This tireless perseverance was finally rewarded in an unexpected way. One ordinary Sunday afternoon, while reviewing old exercises in her backyard, Valentina received an email. It was a simple message, almost hidden among other announcements, but it carried within it the power to change her entire life. A full scholarship at a nearby university, earned through her effort and dedication. As she read those words, the ground seemed to disappear beneath her feet. She ran outside and, under the shade of the old tree that had witnessed so many of her dreams, she cried tears of relief, gratitude, and a silent promise. There, alone with her emotions. She vowed to never forget where she came from or the battles that had shaped her. Starting college brought new challenges. Being surrounded by classmates from realities so different from her own was unsettling. While many spoke casually about international trips and the latest technologies, Valentina still counted her coins carefully to buy a simple snack each day. But once again, her stoic strength prevailed. Instead of feeling inferior or retreating into herself, she chose to learn from the differences. She sat in the front rows, asked questions, participated with a light in her eyes, and shared her story with truth and humility. It wasn't long before Valentina earned the genuine respect of her professors and classmates, not through status, but through the quiet depth of her character. At this point in the story, it's worth pausing to reflect. How often do we abandon our dreams at the first sign of difficulty? How many times do we convince ourselves that we are not capable simply because the path feels too hard? Valentina's journey is a living reminder. Pain is part of the process, but it is a choice to keep moving forward, even when stumbling. That truly defines us. And before we continue to the most inspiring part of Valentina's journey, I want to invite you to do something special. If this story is touching your heart, subscribe to the channel. This way, you help spread messages like this to even more people. Valentina knew that the road she had traveled had been challenging, but she had no idea that the true test of her inner strength was about to begin. In her second year of college, a heavy blow shook everything she had built with such effort. Her grandfather, who had always been like a second father to her, fell gravely ill. With limited resources and little outside help, it fell to her to divide her time between classes, work, and caring for him. Friends suggested she take a break from school, that she postpone her studies. It seemed like a reasonable idea. At times, exhausted both physically and emotionally, she almost gave in. But within her, there was something greater, a flame that refused to be extinguished, and a deep lesson she had carried unknowingly for years. We cannot control what happens to us, but we can always choose how we respond. This philosophy, so deeply rooted in Stoicism, took even stronger hold in her mind. Accepting what could not be changed and focusing only on what was within her power became her compass. Instead of giving in to despair, Valentina chose to reorganize her routine with courage and patience. She studied in hospital corridors during medical appointments, reviewed coursework by the dim light of the kitchen while her grandfather slept, and found strength in places within herself she never knew existed. She didn't waste time asking, "Why me?" Instead, she chose to see the situation as an opportunity to grow in resilience, compassion, and love. Hard days became her new reality, but they did not define her. Each small victory, a lesson completed, an exam passed, a smile from her grandfather, was quietly celebrated as a reminder that she was still on her path. In time, her grandfather's health stabilized. At 22, Valentina graduated with honors. But when she looked back on her journey, the greatest treasure wasn't the diploma itself. It was a woman she had become in the process. Someone who, as the ancient Stoics taught, understood that true happiness does not depend on external circumstances, but on our ability to cultivate virtues like courage, patience, and wisdom. Upon graduating, Valentina chose to return to her hometown, but not as someone seeking to show off material achievements. She came back to give back. She created a small organization focused on helping low-income youth, offering academic tutoring, career guidance, and, above all, hope. With every lesson, with every conversation, she shared something much greater than academic knowledge. She planted a quiet certainty that life is not built by what we have, but by how we choose to act in the face of challenges. And it's impossible not to recall here a quote from Epictetus that Valentina loved to share with her students during their workshops. It's not things themselves that disturb us, but the judgments we make about them. How many times throughout her life could she have judged her reality as unbearable and given up? But Valentina chose instead to interpret each difficulty as an invitation to grow, a chance to become stronger and to bloom. Today, Valentina's story is spreading not because she sought fame or recognition, but because she embodies a universal truth. Genuine happiness is not born from perfect circumstances, but from the ability to find meaning even in the most barren of landscapes. And this silent transformation begins within each one of us. If you've made it this far, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I would also like to extend a special invitation. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, now's the perfect time. Here, every story told is a hug in the form of words, and every video is a gentle reminder that you are not alone on your journey. And since we are speaking about inner strength, I invite you to share with us in the comments. What was the moment in your life when you needed to be the most stoic? Perhaps an unexpected challenge, a painful loss, a hard-won victory. It doesn't matter how big or small the story is. What matters is the courage you had to keep going. Let's build together a space where each experience inspires others to also stand firm in the face of life. Your story matters a lot. And knowing that you are here, walking this journey with us until the end, means more than you can imagine. I'll be waiting for you in the comments and, of course, in the next videos too. A big hug to you.